In the post-war era, Gemini Studios operated as a massive, self-contained world right in the middle of Madras. Its staff followed a predictable daily rhythm of film production. That routine was interrupted by the sudden arrival of the Moral Re-Armament Group, a sprawling international organization with a clear anti-communist mission. 200 people representing over 20 different nationalities filled the shooting floor, creating a stark contrast to the studio's usual local crowd players. The MRA members put on plays that serve as simple religious and moral lectures. Beneath the surface, the core message was highly specific. Communism was bad, and moral values needed defending. But the local Tamil drama community paid little attention to the politics. Instead, they were deeply impressed by the technical execution of the plays, particularly the sets and the costumes. One play, Jotham Valley, achieved a sunrise effect using just a bare stage, a white backdrop, and a tune played on a wooden flute. This minimalist approach was highly innovative for a time when outdoor lighting equipment was scarce. For years afterward, almost every Tamil play copied this exact sunrise aesthetic, regardless of the plot. The Gemini staff enthusiastically adopted these theatrical tricks, yet the MRA's international political agenda went completely ignored. The studio workers remained followers of Gandhi, untouched by the ideological war playing out on their own stages. A few months later, the studio phone lines rang with news of another VIP arrival. The entire shooting floor was cleared once again to welcome a visitor. Word quickly spread through the studio that the guest was an English poet, setting off a guessing game among the crew. For the average staff member, English literature was a very short list. Their knowledge often began with Wordsworth and ended with Tennyson. The slightly more literate employees could reach back and name Keats, Shelley, or Byron, and one or two might have faintly remembered a man by the name of Eliot. Since none of those names seemed to fit the impending arrival, the staff shifted their logic. Their boss, S.S. Vasan, was the editor of the popular Tamil weekly Ananda Vikatan. They deduced that he was simply rolling out the red carpet for a fellow editor. The rumor gained traction when they learned that the prominent national newspaper, The Hindu, was helping organize the visit. The guest had to be a prominent journalist. Through a process of elimination, they cross-referenced the names they knew, confirming he was not associated with either the Manchester Guardian or the London Times. With all their theories exhausted, the staff could do nothing but wait for the clock to strike 4 in the afternoon. When the tall, serious Englishman finally stepped out of his car, his identity remained completely unknown to the crowd gathered to welcome him. The guest took his place on the shooting stage, attempting to look dignified while battling the noise of half a dozen massive pedestal fans blowing around him. Vasan delivered a long welcome address filled with vague praise. It became obvious to everyone listening that he knew very little about the guest's actual work. But scattered throughout Vasan's speech were deliberate mentions of freedom and democracy, signaling a quiet defense against communist ideology. Then, the English poet took the microphone. He spoke for an entire hour to an audience staring back at him in dazed silence. He spoke about his personal thrills and travails, but his heavy British accent rendered his talk completely unintelligible to the workers. The Gemini staff lacked the educational background to process the speech. Their daily lives afforded them no chance to cultivate a taste for English poetry. The result was absurd. A man from the heights of British literature delivering a complex monologue to a crowd that made simple Tamil films for a local audience. When he finally finished, the crowd dispersed in utter bafflement, entirely unsure of what they had just listened to, or why the man had traveled so far to speak to them. The poet left behind a profound confusion. No one could reconcile the presence of a British elite with a studio dedicated to films for the most basic rural audience. In the span of a few months, Gemini Studios had hosted both a massive international army and a solitary poet. Both groups traveled across the world to deliver messages that were simply lost on a community that continued to speak its own language and follow its own rules.